I guess it's time to launch into the talk. I love that word launch. It's just, it's such an explosive feeling. And it is Memorial Day weekend, and it seems like everybody's got a sale going on, right? Everybody's got a 3-day sale. My mailbox is full of them. I mean, mattresses, stereos, home improvements, candy, whatever, right? Netflix. They got a Netflix sale, I'm sure. So, everything, it's easy to get wrapped up in the barbecues. I'm sure we all got places to go after this, maybe enjoy some friends and everything. But it really, there's a deeper moment. And so today we're going to take a moment and express gratitude and appreciation for those that have been in service to this country and community. And not only been in service, because we have Armed Forces Day, and we have Veterans Day, where we honor people that have served and we honor people that are serving. But Memorial Day is a little more special, because these are people that have given their very lives for our communities and for our countries. And I include not only our military personnel, men and women who've served, over the long history of our country, but also police officers and frontline people who've given their lives for their communities in service. In the Gospel of John, Jesus imparts that no one has greater love nor stronger commitment than to lay down his life for his own friends. Yesterday, I had the distinct honor of performing a memorial service for a Vietnam veteran. And in preparation for that service over the last few weeks and then developing this talk, I was really contemplating a lot of things. And I learned his story. And his story was he was going to be drafted in late 60s, 68, I believe. And he decided to join. So he went and signed up, joined the Navy. And he thought he was going to be on a plane. He was in his graduated boot camp and all that, was on a plane and in his dress whites headed to Australia. Thought he was headed to Australia. And at some point on the plane, this sergeant, or I forget what they call him in the Navy, the ranks. I'm an Army guy myself. But petty officer, I guess it is, chief petty officer. And comes up to him and says, I want you to change out of that uniform, sailor. You get out of that uniform right now. And he's like, well, why do I need to get out of my uniform? And she says, change into a different uniform, get those off. And he didn't do it. Well, the plane kept flying. Sergeant, the petty officer comes up again. Change out of that uniform, sailor. Get out of that uniform right now. And he wouldn't tell him why. Well, finally, the sailor realized that he wasn't going to Australia. He was headed to Vietnam. So he finally changed out of his uniform and he ended up in Da Nang. And where they ended up assigning him to was in the riverboat division. And if you've ever heard of PBRs, the ravine boats, and you might have seen them in the movie Apocalypse Now, kind of that kind of thing. That's where he ended up. And he served 2 tours of combat there. Between 1968 and 1971, he earned several unit citations and he earned a Bronze Star for his service. So I had the distinct honor of performing. He came back home and he became a family man. He served in his kids' soccer leagues. He did with drywall. He ended up working in a halfway house as a as a repairman. And in that, he was counseling a lot of the people that were going through recovery and stuff like that. So I had the distinct honor of doing his memorial yesterday at a cemetery called Miramar. It's part of the Miramar Marine Corps Air Station. It's on the back end of it. And it was such a powerful service. They had this group called the Patriot Riders, and they're groups of bikers because this gentleman was a biker. And they had a group of bikers there with flags, and they held an honor guard as we pulled up. And they had the 2 military members, United States sailors, that were there to perform the flag ceremony. And so the sailors did the flag ceremony, the honor guard was there, presenting the colors. And then they got up and explained to us, one of the members from the honor guard explained to us why we're doing the ceremony, what the flag means. And it was such a poignant ceremony. And I was kind of looking around as they were doing it, and it was surrounded by these white stones, just acres and acres, and not as big as many of the cemeteries, like the one in Washington or other places, or even Point Loma, but there were quite a few headstones there. And it just made me realize, the gravity, like how many people and the sacrifices, they've made. And what I learned about this gentleman is, again, the service that he gave. The one thread about his whole life was service. Service to family, service to friends, service to his community, service to the nation, and service to the world. I was thinking about these white stones and the people that inhabit, that they represent, the lives they represent, the mosaic, the tapestry of each and every life. And what they would say to this day if we could hear them. And I think one of the things they would say is, make it worth it. Make our sacrifice worth it. Enjoy your life, but be of service wherever you can. So today we're going to kind of explore the ways we can honor these selfless souls through our own commitment and willingness to serve from this deeper calling of Christ, as they did, with courage, honor, and joy. Some of the folks that served in these conflicts were drafted. Some of them went willingly. Some of them didn't want to serve, but they found themselves there. And in those situations, we hear from stories from relatives, and I'm sure many of you have relatives, at least one relative that has probably fought and died in a conflict somewhere. Or maybe in a training, served in the military and died in training. But that level of commitment, and so finding, you hear stories from a lot of these people of how they survived when they were there, or what got them through, what they were fighting for, why they decided to enlist. And there's many reasons. Some felt a calling for an idea, like freedom. We were fighting maybe with a country, at war with a country that, we were scared was going to take away our freedom. Maybe simply the best we could do is fight for our friends and our comrades, to be present for them. So again, there's different ways of expressing this, different ways of finding reasons in a situation that carries through. In the Psalms, chapter 23, verse 6, it says, "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." So I look upon our lives as we're like these, when I looked upon this sailor's life, I was thinking about that PBR boat. And, the way it cuts through the water, the way the ships cut through the water. In our lives, as we move through our lives and we're practicing these ideas of service, wherever we are, maybe it's just being a friend and listening. Maybe it's finding a community organization that we can be part of, or a group. Maybe it's participating in a kids' soccer league as a coach. Maybe it's volunteering to teach at a school. Maybe it's serving here in church, wearing many different hats. There's many ways we can serve, and often we don't get to see the results of that service. We're kindly blinding going through it, but we don't get to see the blessings upon others that we may be extending simply by our service, simply by being willing. It's like Samuel just having that attitude of, "Here am I, send me, use me." And again, we don't always have choices of the situations that come into our lives, but we can be that boat. We can be that boat cutting through the water. I think of the Navy ships that are employed, and these ships they're made to destroy things. They're made to blow things up. But oftentimes, what do we use them for? We see them being used for humanitarian missions, to deliver food and supplies to other countries, to aid people that have been, decimated by earthquakes. These battleships, these aircraft carriers, cutting through the water, and the wake of blessing extending out to these other places that need it. And so again, our own lives can be like those boats, moving forward, cutting through the waters, and extending those blessings outward. So again, the Bible verse, no one has greater love or stronger commitment than to lay down his own life for his friends. And the other thing that came to me about this idea of the fallen in combat, the people who gave their lives, is that there's many different ways to give a life. In the case of the sailor that I did the memorial for, he came back from Vietnam at a very bad time. The country wasn't too hip on the war. There was lots of protest, and these poor people came home and they were being just ridiculed and harassed and treated very badly. And a lot of them came back with PTSD, which at that time still wasn't a thing that was studied or treated. Nowadays we have a better understanding of it. But what came to me is that there's many different ways people can die. It's not just a physical death. But they come back, they maybe have laid down their spiritual life. They maybe have laid down their mental well-being in service. So there's many different ways we can look at laying down a life. We don't know how we're going to be called or how it's going to affect us, or if that's going to be the ultimate cost at the end. So in that, one of the things we can take away from this is to be more compassionate to our service members and our first responders and to their families that have supported them in this service. It can teach us to be more compassionate, more willing, in case we ever have to make that sacrifice. So we can honor these selfless souls through our own commitment. Through our own commitment and willingness to serve from a deeper calling. A deeper calling of Christ with courage, honor, and joy, leaving behind a wake of blessings. So lastly, I'd like to read a short poem that I read at the memorial the other day. It's a beautiful poem. And it's a great way, I think, to honor these heroes that have served us. And just lastly, keeping in mind, we can be worth it. We can be worth it how we show up in each and every part of our lives. Fighting for those ideas, expressing those ideas of love, of courage, of honor. We can be peacemakers in every situation. A lot of the combat veterans I've talked to, come back, especially the ones that came back from World War II, they want peace more than anybody else, it seems like. The ones that have actually been in war are the biggest peacemakers when they come home because they've seen the ravages of what happens. And we can emulate that too. My purpose today wasn't to come here and be a downer or to express that, but I wanted to express the gravity of what was sacrificed and that we can take that. And the best way, I believe, to honor these brave individuals that gave the ultimate price is to be worth it again, to live our lives for those ideas they fought, for peace, for freedom, for love, for compassion. Just as our master teacher Jesus had dedicated his life and gave it in service. So today, would you join me in consecrating our lives to God today, those ideas of God? But this is a hero's welcome. A time to come home, dear brother. Your tour of duty is through, and you've given as much as anyone could be expected to do. Just a few steps further, the smoke will start to clear. Others here will guide you. You have no need to fear. You've not failed your brothers. You clearly gave it all. And through your selfless actions, others will hear the call. So take your place of honor among those who have gone before, and know you will be remembered for now and evermore. Someday we will all come to the end of our personal races, and I believe we will hear that word, that voice of the Christ, that voice of Spirit that says, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." So again, today, we consecrate our entire beings to divine love, to peace, to service. Thank you. Namaste.